All right, I think everybody is here. We're going to get started. Good morning, everyone. So glad to see you joining us again. I see lots of familiar names. Some new people are joining us this morning, which is great to see. We're going to keep our cameras and our microphones off and muted for this presentation. So it's important that you find that chat box at the bottom of your screen, click on chat, and it'll pop out in a separate window, and you can type in there to ask your questions. Today is our first week of our Community Partners series, and we're thrilled to have Provincial Deaf and Hard of Hearing Services come and present today. Before I introduce Melissa to present, I'm just going to go over a quick technical issue. Oh, sorry. There we go. Make sure that you are in gallery view for these settings. Gallery view is going to allow you to see all of the people who are sharing their screens. So that would include the interpreter, our presenter, Melissa, and myself right now. Once you're in gallery view, at the very top of your screen, click on View Options and scroll down to side-by-side mode, and that's going to allow you to see the interpreter the best. And you can widen her screen to make her bigger. Or, sorry, Melissa. And finally, if you see a whole bunch of empty names like this down the side of your screen, you can remove those so only those who are sharing their screen are on your screen. Oh, first, sorry, this is how you move the bar over to the left and right to make it bigger or smaller. But to remove all of those screens, you move your mouse over top of the empty names, and a blue box like this with 3 dots will appear. And you can click Hide Non-Video Participants. And that will remove all of those people's names so you don't see them. And all you'll see is the interpreter, Melissa, and myself. And you can move that bar side to side to make it bigger or smaller. So without further ado, if you do have any questions about technology, if this is your first time joining us, just type it in the chat box and I'll try and help you then. Without further ado, I will introduce Melissa Michael, who is presented to us about updates and services through Provincial Deaf and Hard of Hearing Services. And we're excited to have this presentation shared with everybody around the province today. It's a nice platform to be able to connect with a wide variety of people. I know we have teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing mostly calling in, but we also have some EAs, some resource teachers, some administrators, and maybe even a few parents and interpreters joining us. So mostly the school-based team is our focus for today, Melissa, just so you're aware of who's calling in. I'm just going to open Melissa's PowerPoint. If you'll bear with me, and I'll give you control of my screen.
Excellent. Thank you, Alana. All right. Whew, that was much bigger than I expected it to be. Okay. Hello, everyone. Great to see so many familiar names popping up. At the same time, there's a lot of new names there that I've not seen before. So really excited to see you. We have some new information. So if you thought you knew everything about PDHHS, you're not going to be bored today because there's some updates to share. To be honest, this is my first time presenting this way, so I'll beg your patience as I go. I will give you a little bit of an introduction as to who I am. As Lana said, my name is Melissa. My name sign is like this. It's an MA. I use ASL. I don't use English at all or any spoken language. I use visual language all the way. I work for Provincial Deaf and Hard of Hearing Services, or PDHHS, and have done for almost 20 years now, if I count them. I've had a lot of different roles within the organization over the years. My work has always been with families, though, families who have deaf and hard of hearing or deaf blind children and youth. I have worked with families from a range of language choices as well, from using only ASL to using a mix of ASL and speech, or families who only use speech and have gone back and forth across that spectrum. Today, I work for Provincial Family Services under PDHHS. We have been experiencing a few changes over the last little while that I'm very excited to share with you. One, unfortunately, we've had COVID-19 really interrupt our plans, but we are trying to look at it in a positive light and move forward as best as possible. We are providing a lot more online services than we had expected to, and our skills are growing in that area, which is exciting. I don't know how to forward the slide. I'm supposed to have control. And maybe you'll need to click the little arrows, the backwards and forwards arrows on the actual screen. Ooh, did I do that? All right, so as you can see here on the screen, you can see our bit of a flow chart, which shows how we have established ourselves. We are under the Ministry of Children and Family Development, MCFD. And we are the Provincial Deaf and Hard of Hearing Services after all. This is how we got our name. We asked a lot of different stakeholders, parents, families, community members, and that is how the name Provincial Deaf and Hard of Hearing Services came to be, was with a lot of consultation with the community. And then you can see that we break off into two different programs. There's the Victory Hill Dorms. It used to be called Victory Hill Residential Program. But again, we surveyed the community, we talked to families, and there was a preference for a name change to just the dorms. So we now have Victory Hill Dorms. It has a much more positive connotation. Residential programs in the past have had a very negative stigma to them, considering the past and the history here in Canada. So we do have Victory Hill Dorms. Um, Sometimes a family choose to send their children strictly to the school for maybe sports or for learning different languages. We are the same kind of idea. Victory Hill Dorms is like a boarding school almost. Kids are sent by their family and they get the full ASL immersive experience. They're in an ASL environment, both in the dorms and at the school for the deaf. We are local. Children do go home on the weekends, though. They do not stay for months. We have lots of workers at the Victory Hill dorms who provide staff. We have mostly deaf staff, but some hearing staff who also use sign language so that the children have that array of people that they can be with. So if children use spoken language, that's fine. They're welcome here. We do have staff that can accommodate that need. But again, it is an ASL immersive experience where children are able to gain that visual language and really internalize it. Children who are deaf and use ASL have no problem integrating into the program at Victory Hill Dorms. We also support children who have additional support needs. All the children, like I said, go home every weekend and also on holidays. All holidays they spend with their families. Sometimes families will arrange, and maybe there's a decision that parents want to come down here for the weekend as opposed to the child flying home. And so we do arrange for families to come and stay in the residence as well and to just be down here with their children. We do have permission to stay, for families to stay in our houses every once in a while. Sometimes we also have children who maybe have other relatives or friends who live in the area. And instead of flying home every weekend, they'd rather take a break from that. So then families can arrange to have their children stay without those relatives or friends in the Lower Mainland, maybe one weekend a month or something like that. Of course, it depends on families and how they make those decisions for themselves. But children are always on the weekend with somebody in their family or a relative or friend. And then we also have Provincial Family Services. And this is probably where you notice a different name change. We used to have a flow chart with multiple programs, and now we just have the two. So that was probably the first change. We used to have youth transition program, consultative services, access services, and family and community services, but we have now rolled all those into one called Provincial Family Services. Right now, we have a team of 5 staff members. The slide isn't changing. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we have our team of 5. Here they are on your screen. There's Kathy Glover. She is hearing and she has spoken English. We have Roger Chan. Roger is deaf. Then we have Erin Bentley. Erin is deaf. Then Heather. Heather is also deaf. So there's the 5 of us, including myself, as well as 2 other administrative staff. So there are currently 2 postings going live soon, where we will be looking to hire 2 more individuals to become our full slate of 7. So our team currently, our job titles are family navigators. We are all expected to work across the range of a family's lifetime. Of course, focusing on supporting families who have deaf, hard of hearing, or deafblind children from the ages of 5 to their 24th birthday. And that is regardless of language choices, whether they are using sign language, whether they're using spoken language. Our services will look, of course, differently. They are tailored to each family's needs, and we are following family-centered process. So looking at the family's goals. Sometimes families request, maybe they're looking for funding for speech and language support, like SLP support for the children. So we get involved in advocating for support, looking for that kind of funding for them. Or there's a request for an ASL class for family members, etc. And we provide that free of charge. Maybe parents need help with an individual education plan at the schools, the IEPs that happen. Maybe the teachers, as you all are teachers, um, oftentimes they want to stay in their own role. They want to keep that separate from supporting parents and advocating for parents. And so oftentimes we will see a request come in from parents to have one of our staff members to support the IEP process. The IEP process can be a really sensitive and difficult time for parents. So we want to make sure that we offer that additional support walking with them. We educate parents through the meeting, before the meeting, and support them afterwards as well. Sometimes parents don't know what to ask for, or they don't know what to say in an IEP meeting, or they're uncertain what questions can be brought forward. So we support that as well. We offer that kind of support to parents in a way that they can learn. I think my point is that we offer a huge range of services, and yet we follow what the family's goals are. How they have established themselves is how we want to make sure that we are providing that support. Just going to try and click the slide forward. There we go. So this is our new service menu. We do have 4 categories under Provincial Family Services. There is family and parental support, and that includes parent coaching. Sometimes we see parents who really want support with strengthening sibling relationships between their children, whether they have multiple children who are hearing and one who is deaf, or siblings who need to know sign language, so to be able to include their deaf sibling. So we will support families in developing a space where their family home becomes a rich language environment for their deaf or hard of hearing child. Maybe there are also behavior challenges in the home, and we can provide tips and strategies for working with deaf and hard of hearing children. We provide different workshops, sort of group activities for parents. We also do all of this work from attachment theories. We want to make sure that we're following models where families and the child are able to really connect, because that child is the most important person in their life. We also provide immersive experiences. So sometimes we will provide classes, but maybe classes aren't a good fit for that family or for many families. It could be the family has English as their second or third language. Maybe they're immigrants from another country, or maybe they don't do well in group settings. There are lots of different reasons. I think there could be challenges at home. Maybe they don't feel comfortable leaving home and going to a class. There are multiple reasons. And so we will then provide one on one support as well. Again, we also do provide immersive experiences like maybe some families' work schedules are really off the chart. As we all know, work can be hard, ourselves included, right? Where we're not always following a 9 to 5 schedule. And so we have to learn as family navigators what the family's schedule is like and how we can best fit into that. Of our goal is, of course, to make things work. And our team, we are very fortunate in our flexible hours. So um, we work all year. We don't take the summers off. We have a variety of different working hours. And again, with the 7 team members, of course, we're down to 5 right now, but soon 7. It is a small team, but we are very reflexive and responsive, and we work very hard to ensure that flexibility. Annually, we do a summer immersion experience for a week where we take over the Victory Hill dorms. All the kids, of course, have gone home. It's the summer. And so we have a bunch of empty houses and it's time to party. I'm just kidding. Actually, we take that week every year to partner with Deaf Youth Today, which is a program that provides a lot of good activities for deaf and hard of hearing children and youth to meet their friends who are also deaf and hard of hearing and to do activities together. But we also have parents come and stay in the dorm houses free of charge, and they're able to be down here for that immersion week. We also provide, as I said, that navigation support for parents, especially if there's a child who has additional needs. They have additional support requirements. Maybe they have services under children and youth with special needs. And we are all under the same umbrella uh, of children and youth with special needs. That team. Oh, sorry, I have. Looks like there's a question from Bowen. Are the staff hard of hearing and do they use spoken English or ASL? Again, we have a team. We used to have a hard of hearing team member who used spoken English and ASL both. We hire people based on their qualifications in relation to working with families. So we also do require ASL as part of those qualifications. So our staff who are deaf use ASL. And if they are working with a family who uses spoken language, we make sure that there are interpreters provided. Our goal is to make our services as accessible as possible to everyone possible. So hopefully, Bowen, that answers your question. Oh, what are the ages of the children and youth? Sorry, let me read that question again. Getting parents involved in the immersive program. What age does that child need to be? From age 5 to their 24th birthday. However, there are some years where we really focus on a particular age group. So maybe the elementary age group or the secondary age group. So looking at how we can really streamline some of those activities where we're looking at the activities really focusing on younger children or the focus for activities for older children. And does the Island Deaf and Hard of Hearing Center still fall under the PDHHS banner? It does not. It does receive some funding from MCFD, though, in order to operate their own family programs over on the island. Sometimes PDHHS does have a Vancouver Island family day, or a family from Vancouver Island join us when IDHHC is unable to meet the needs of that family. But we do communicate with IDHHC often, and we work in partnership with them in order to support families. Again, we are flexible. We want to make things work for the families as much as possible. Any more questions at this point? Oh, sorry, could we go back? Yes, let's go back to the service menu. Perfect. Um, so again, we're looking at our family services. We have a really strong program there. We also have a program for youth transition services. And that has been a very popular program under PDHHS. And this comes out in a variety of ways. Some youth want to get into post-secondary and they need some support doing that. Some want to book an appointment for some support. Others need to do some soul searching and really figure out who they are inside and what they really want in life. And so we support youth in a variety of ways by connecting them with resources and other services. Many youth just need support with life skills, how to use the SkyTrain, how to use public transit. So things like that. We get involved, and our youth transition workers walk alongside those youth as they learn new things. We also run groups for youth in transition. And again, we invite everybody. It doesn't matter whether they are using ASL or a spoken language, whether they are speaking and listening or using their eyes and their hands. It's always just focused around a topic. It's not focused on whether or not it's hearing loss or whether it's visual language. There's none of that. We're looking at a topic of skill development. And these youth get together and they are part of a community together. We are trying to avoid grouping people between languages. Oh, assigning youth, you need to be in this group. Youth who's using spoken language, you need to be in that group. We don't want to create divides like that. We don't care what your hearing loss or hearing level is. It doesn't matter what language you're using. We're getting everybody together. Eventually, they're all going to be adults out in the community, and they are going to be socializing with one another anyway. So it just gives us the opportunity for deaf children and youth to make choices later. And maybe they've started off using ASL and they would prefer to use spoken language later in life. Or maybe it's the opposite way around. They start out using spoken language and later in life, they decide they want to use ASL. That is not something that we decide for youth in any way. We leave that for themselves to decide. They are fully autonomous human beings, and with their opportunity to socialize with one another, they get to see both languages. Yes, somebody had asked if this PowerPoint is being recorded, and yes, the webinar is recorded. We also look at language development. We provide free ASL classes for family members. The child and youth usually gets an ASL class through their school or through the Provincial Outreach Program for Deaf and Hard of Hearing. So we usually focus on the families that are surrounding that child. We welcome more than just parents. We look at extended family as well, aunts, uncles, grandparents, etc. We don't create just nuclear family bubbles. We want to make sure that anyone who is in direct contact with that child or cares for that child has the opportunity to communicate with them. We also focus on literacy skills. How to promote reading at home with your deaf and hard of hearing child. How do you get your deaf and hard of hearing children just really bought into reading? How to provide parents those skills to really draw out that love and that passion for learning for deaf and hard of hearing children. Literacy is such an important part of human life. It has a lot of additional culture and world knowledge that develops. It's also how language develops at home. So parents sometimes need some support with that, and PDHHS is happy to walk alongside parents to do that. And then we look over at community collaboration. We collaborate with many service providers throughout the province. One example is the Wellbeing Program. Another is the early intervention agencies that exist in BC. school districts across the province, just a variety of different communities, partners that we work with in a lot of different creative ways to support their programming and services as well. We were a lot more mobile before COVID-19 and doing a lot of outreach throughout the province, but now we are, of course, our wings are clipped right now, but in good times, we get out across the province and we sometimes contract with local deaf community members to provide services in those more remote communities outside of the Lower Mainland. We do work closely with many teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing because they do know their communities better than we do. So we want to be working in collaboration and partnership with them and also other professionals in the fields in those areas. Are there any more questions at this point in time? I'm going to try and forward the slide. All right, so this is how you can get in touch with me. That was really all I had prepared today. But I guess I'm wondering, with anything on the list that I presented, did you see something that really resonated? I see some familiar faces, like I see Angela on there. Sorry, Angela, to put you on the spot. But I'm wondering if you would be willing to share an experience that you had collaborating with PDHHS.
Yes, put me on the spot.
Sorry, I know you didn't probably come prepared.
It's been a while, but I had Melissa and some other staff come to one of my smaller districts to support a family whose child was deaf / hard of hearing and was kind of stuck between the hearing world and the signing world of communication. So they provided a lot of options for them to access, and I believe they did some work with them without me around. So they involved the family and the community. So it was really good and really positive. Sadly, that family moved to Alberta, and that child, yeah. Sorry. Short and sweet.
Awesome. Thanks, Angela. Elena, can I turn it over to you?
Yeah, thank you very much, Melissa. That was helpful. I didn't know about those name changes, which I think are good. In sign language, we always call it the dorm, so it makes sense that the English now fits with the signs that we always use. So that's great. I also, something that was new to me last year was having PDHHS come and join us in the IEP meetings. Sometimes Pop DHH is there as well, because we're supporting maybe a student that's really complex, or if a student is using ASL and the school team doesn't know ASL. I think it's really good to have us collaborate at that IEP meeting so we can share our resources. And I know that we sometimes work together to provide family events in different communities. So all of those things are ways that we can have the school team and the family team connect. And I think that it's important that us as teachers know that that is an option, and to contact you and get families to get in touch with you, even if it's just for that moral support in the IEP meetings, or to access funding services and things like that. Sometimes we don't always know where to look as teachers, and so it's great to have another community resource that we can reach out to. I think Fiona had a question also about, there's a few questions coming up. Where does the early hearing program fit into the umbrella? Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, BC Early Hearing Program is actually under the Ministry of Health, not under MCFD. So it is not funded by us. We do fund early intervention though. So early intervention services are funded through the Ministry of Children and Families. Like right now, the contract is with BC Family Hearing Resource Center. BC Family Hearing Resource Center receives the funding through MCFD, through us. And the early hearing program also is a funder for some of that, but they're a separate program under the Ministry of Health. Alana, you're on mute.
Sorry. Is there any funding that a family can tap into to hire someone fluent in sign language to hang out with their deaf and hard of hearing child for a couple hours a week to help the child build their language skills for summer months in particular, like a deaf mentor program or something like that?
That is a very long question.
Sounds like a
It
very
really
specific
depends.
question.
Yes. I mean, and it really depends on a lot of different things that come into play. We do have a family navigator who would work with the family to figure out a good plan and then check in with the family around what that child needs, whether they have any additional support needs. Do they qualify for additional funding under the Children with Special Needs, CSYN? Or CYSN, do they have autism funding, those sorts of things. And so we do work with a family to see whether there is funding available. But of course, the family is able to use the funding to hire whomever they would like to support their child. And if that child has no additional support needs and there is no funding available, then we do check into local service providers and we support that family in the area in which they live, whether it is on the island. Then we look at the Island Deaf and Hard of Hearing Center to see what they potentially have available as far as staff members who could work with that family or child. If there are no staff members available in the localized area, then we try connecting back to our program and creating some kind of support plan. We obviously can't provide a specific answer for a specific child right now. We do, again, we don't focus on child supports, we focus on family supports. And so we're looking at supporting an entire family. We are a family-centered approach in our programming. And so if it's during the summertime, maybe it's around connecting with Deaf Youth Today, that program through FNDC. We try and work with the family to be as creative as possible in order to establish service throughout the summer months. There are a lot of different opportunities and ways that we work with families to create these plans together. So again, we work closely with the family navigator and that family in order to put a plan in place, trying to figure things out. There is no one black or white answer to that question, other than we do support families the best we can.
Also, I have been successful in applying for funding through Jordan's principle if the student is Indigenous, Fiona. So that is another way that we can get funding for a deaf mentor, and I'm sure that PDHHS could help the family to apply for that as well if that's an option. I also just wanted to mention that we have FNDC and Deaf Youth Today coming to present during one of our Tuesday community updates. So that might be something that you want to call in for and get some updates and information from them as well. And as well as the Deaf Wellbeing Program, Beverly wanted to know the difference between the services you provide and the Deaf Wellbeing Program. Oh, sure.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to touch on a point that you raised. The child themselves, if they are a foster child under ministry care, there is sometimes a social worker available, and then there is oftentimes funding that way. But again, the challenging part is that sometimes there is support needed to explain to the social worker why language is important, why a deaf mentor would be important. Oftentimes there is a resistance to putting funding towards those kinds of things. And so we would back up the family in explaining those kinds of things to that social worker in order to create a space where that is available. There are so many options. I could not go through them all today because it is very specific to each situation. I mean, there's often one-time funding as well that you can look at. It's all over the place. And so again, that family navigator would work with figuring that out with that specific case.
And then the difference between your services and deaf well-being program.
Yeah. So PDHHS is actually funds the well-being program. They are fully funded under MCFD, which is kind of ironic, and yet they are running under Vancouver Coastal Health. We provide family preservation services, trying to keep language and skills based on what the family needs in that support, parent coaching, etc. The well-being program focuses on mental health services. They do a lot of preventative work as well. So again, we often work closely with the well-being program on creating these plans for families. We make sure that the family service plan provides mental health support, whether that's counseling or assessments, and in which case we rely on the well-being program for that. We don't run assessments or things like that ourselves. But families will work with us, and as we go forward with that family, we may realize they need additional support in the mental health area, so then we would refer them to the well-being program. And sometimes we see the opposite thing happening where the well-being program is working with a family around mental health, and then they realize there's a lot of other underlying community-based issues that they will then refer the family over to us so that we can sort of support sorting some of those things out.
That's great. There's a lot of collaboration between the services. Um, Again, please call into the Deaf Wellbeing Program presentation to get more information about specific services. And as well, Shannon was asking about summer camps. We are going to have Deaf Youth Today come, FNPC come and present. So please call into that to get more information about the summer camps and that information.
So many layers. I did want to answer the question about summer camps. There is DYT, yes. There is also maybe a family who is in need and isn't able to attend those kinds of things. Please do let us know, and we can provide a family navigator to support finding funding in order to get your child into a camp. Summer camp is really worth it for those kids. And so we'd really love to be able to see a way for that child to join in if that's what the family so desires, and we will be able to try and figure out how to support that financially or otherwise.
Does that apply to the summer immersion week as well, Melissa?
Again, it depends on the family situation. We can't give a blanket answer to that one, whether that is a child in care or really difficult to get anywhere out of their community. Maybe it's very remote, etc. And so again, we will be looking at that family specifically, what it is that they need, how we can support them. Maybe there is already funding available in their community for travel. So then we work in partnership with their community service providers. Again, it is case by case. There is no one blanket answer.
Great. I think that is the oh, are there summer day programs for deaf and hard of hearing kids this summer? Yeah, there might be some changes to programming due to COVID-19. Again, I think Deaf Youth Today will be able to answer that, but if you want to add something, Melissa, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about summer this year. I know DYT has a fabulous program that runs through the summer every year. And we at PDHHS support families to come and stay at the dorms for those programs. The dorms are closed during the summer. There are no children staying there. So we often do book our houses on a weekly basis so that families can come down and stay. There's no charge to the families to come. They just use the building. And then they want to access services like DYT summer camps, and the family is down here in order to do that. Maybe they need to take their child to Children's Hospital, or maybe they're down here for an appointment with the cochlear implant team, or whatever the reason may be. If a family needs to come down and they need a place to stay during the summer, oftentimes the dorm houses are available for that. Again, we do book up and we do have some limitations. An example would be if the family wants to arrive on a Saturday, there are no staff around, so they are going to have to come in on a weekday, Monday to Friday. We have to really figure out scheduling to ensure that there is a staff member there and that family can actually access the property.
Great, thank you. I think that is all of our questions today. Thank you to everyone for calling in and getting this information. Thank you, Melissa, for sharing. It is very helpful for us to continue to be updated, and we hope that we can collaborate like this again in future. And thank you, Jessica, for interpreting. I'm just giving it a minute in case there's any other questions. Always staying at the dorm free for these families, just to clarify. I believe that's what you said, yes. All right, thank you everyone. Have a great day and we will talk to you soon.
Bye, everybody. Thanks so much. Take good care. Bye-bye. And connect with me anytime.